All right, so what is it? You know, we've been asked for a quick definition of it. And really, it's all about transforming our transportation system to the future. It's to use GPS. It's to move away from a radar system. It's to try and move into the current technology that's available for cars. I think right now there are more cars with GPS systems in there for directions than there are in airplanes for navigation. So we'd like to change that. We'd like to make sure that we can move away from a radar system to a GPS-based system. And it's also about new procedures that go along with that. We no longer have to fly the tracks that we have for the VFR and the jet routes, the Victor Airways, to try and go from point to point and get as many direct twos as we can. Okay, so why do we need it? So although I'm focusing on general aviation, I'd like you to also think of yourself as a passenger in the air transportation system when you're flying somewhere. Also, when you're ordering things that you want them shipped through the cargo carriers. And in addition to that, maybe you have a job in air transportation that this all might affect the way you do your business every day. But here are some statistics. I don't need to read them to you, but you know, air transportation really is a huge contributor to the economy. Okay, there are four general areas of NextGen. It's the economic impact that I just talked about. And again, it's all about safety. Safety is our #1 mission for FAA, for air transportation. I saw you had a speaker from the NTSB, definitely there. I mean, so safety always comes first, and there will be no change in our air transportation system unless we have proven it to be very safe. We're also very concerned about our environment, and that's the sustainability. We need to have fewer emissions, less noise, and hopefully by using some of the new technology and new procedures, we're able to do that. And also flexibility. The flexibility will give us access. It'll give us access in bad weather. It'll reduce delays. So the flexibility is the fourth of our pillars. So the economic impact. So NextGen capabilities are going to provide 23 billion cumulative benefits through 2018. Now we're investing a couple billion to get there. So we want to make sure that the benefits we get far outweigh the initial investments that we put in there. So we want to make a system that is way more efficient. Now, for general aviation active aircraft, this is from our forecast conference, and you can see that the actual and the forecast, if you compare them, the actuals up until this year, and then we move forward. The growth rate is very small. Last year, we were able to predict a growth of 0.9% for general aviation, and now it's down to 0.7%. So the economy, I'm sure, is affecting this, but we're hoping to stimulate more demand in general aviation, just as we're trying to stimulate more demand in the air carrier and cargo air transportation. So this was the forecast for this year. See how much it dropped from last year's forecast. Active aircraft stayed pretty steady. And you can see the different types. The red are your piston, blue are experimental and others, and then yellow, your turbine craft. Hours flown, look at that. Do you think the fuel prices have anything to do with that? Again, the same colors, same thing. Turbines seem to be doing well, but they're carrying a lot of passengers generally. Okay, let's talk about sustainability. So in Seattle, we have new procedures, and those procedures, Air Alaska has actually invested a lot of money to help us create those procedures, and we'll be able to reduce carbon dioxide emissions by 22,400 metric tons a year. Anyway, that's a lot. That is an awful lot, and we'd like to do that in more places. GA fuel, you're hearing a lot of noise about GA fuel and trying to remove lead. No change will take place for GA fuel for the 100 low lead unless it's deemed to be safe for a piston aircraft. I have a piston aircraft myself, Comanche 260B. I'm very concerned about this because I want to make sure that I have fuel for my aircraft. And the decisions for the fuel tanks that are at your GA airports, you know, you usually have 2 tanks. One is for jet fuel and the other one is for 100 low lead. Now, some of the GA aircraft can run on gasoline, but the majority of hours that are flown are with piston aircraft. So, you know, so this is a concern, but we have folks at the FAA at our technical center working on a solution. And there are other private industry folks also working on a solution. So when we get there and we have lead-free fuel, there will be a solution for us piston aircraft owners. Flexibility, flight delays. Anybody here never been delayed on a flight? No hands went up. Yes, and supposedly if we fix the problems at our key larger airports, and those larger airports are in metroplexes, and the metroplexes contain GA airports. So when you reduce those delays there and the GA aircraft are able to fly in without being delayed, we know we will have achieved something fantastic. But we want to get to the phenomenal. And the phenomenal is that we have an increased demand, we have more aircraft, and we're still not delayed. That's the ultimate goal here. Here is a video of how some of our new procedures can be changed, getting away from the original VOR type charting that goes with the Victor Airways and the arrival procedures. So let's see. This video, what it shows though is that you're going through a mountainous terrain in Jackson Hole, Wyoming, and you're flying one route that takes you out of your way, takes you into the airport, and it flies over lots of very expensive homes. They would rather us not fly there, especially since Wyoming has so much land where, you know, if you flew over the land where the houses are not, then there would be less noise. Now, we do not, FAA does not design procedures right now to move noise. But we do it to improve flexibility and efficiency. And so the routing here, it takes you a totally different route from what was originally planned, and it allows people to do tighter turns because you're using something called Required Navigation Performance, RNAV, and you're able to get into the airport. Okay, safety. This whole forum is about safety. FAA is about safety. Air transportation is about safety. With satellite surveillance, we will be able to provide faster updates and we'll have greater precision. And I'll talk about what technology allows us to do that. And it probably won't be the first time you've heard some of that. Now, this is an interesting approach. Does anybody know where this is? It's in Alaska. How would you like to be flying in this when you've got marginal or IMC conditions? Be a little tricky. And we've all been watching those Air Alaska shows on TV. I find them to be very exciting to think that how, you know, with the number one means of transportation being air transportation in Alaska, how they're able to reach those remote areas and fly into things like that. But with Required Navigation Performance, RNAV, and with something called Automatic Dependent Surveillance Broadcast, ADSB, you're able to fly these in marginal conditions and some in IMC. Okay, so let's talk about how's this going to affect us, a GA pilot. Are we all pilots here? Yes, any? Okay. How many own your own aircraft? Okay, about more than half of you. Okay, so that you know that in 2020 we'll be required to have ADSB ADSB out, the version where we send a signal out That'll be mandated if we fly in controlled airspace. So wherever a transponder is required today, that's where ADSB out will be required. We'll also talk a little bit about GPS RNAV. Now, I remember my little airport in Annapolis, Maryland, I had to wait for a VFR day to fly out. Now, there could be just a little storm cell right around Annapolis and, you know, Cavu weather everywhere else, but I couldn't leave. Nor could I fly in if I were outside trying to get in. And we got something called a GPS approach to one end of the runway. And we were thrilled because we could get in there now with ceilings of about 600 feet. But with WAS LPV, we'll be able to, we don't have it in Annapolis yet, but you'll be able to get in there at 200-foot ceilings, and that is pretty incredible. And then we have our electronic flight bags. How many of you own iPads? Yes. Do you use it for charting? I find a little problem with the glare sometimes, you know, from the sun. But I see all these vendors here with glare shields, so I think I might have to purchase one before I leave. But that will help that. But it certainly beats carrying all those paper charts, although I still carry some as backup just for safety reasons. Because if you don't preload them, you don't get Wi-Fi service before you approach your airport, and you're kind of stuck without them. Then you have to ask for ATC vectoring. Okay, ADSB. Anybody here have it? Neither do I, but we will. We'll get it. It's going to just provide a phenomenal amount of safety for us. Will also, cost-wise, you know, investing in NextGen takes millions, a couple billions of dollars, really. And we can't support everything we're supporting today in order to get to the future. We have a lot of redundant radar systems. Maybe we can do away with those that are redundant and just keep the minimum as backup to ADSB. The ADSB signals are so much more precise. Who knows how many seconds it takes for a radar update? It can be, depending what type of radar, it can be 10 to 20 seconds. A plane can be flying pretty far in that amount of time. With ADSB, you can cut that in half or a third or even less. And so you have more precision because you know where your aircraft are at all times. And if you get ADSB in down the road, you'll be able to see all the other, you'll be able to see all the aircraft that the controllers see. It'll be a 35-mile ring around your airplane where you can see all the planes. You'll be able to see them above you and below you. And that is pretty incredible. I don't know about any of you, but I've flown where when you start really flying a lot of IFR, your eyes are glued to the cockpit way more than outside. And when you're in an area like I am around Washington, D.C., and you have VFR, IFR, a real mix, and you have special flight areas, and you have gates by which you have to exit and enter into the controlled airspace, there are planes flying back and forth, and boy, keeping your head down is just a very dangerous thing. And one day I was looking down and looked up, and oh my gosh, there was a plane coming at me. And not directly at me, but close enough where I had to do that quick turn to the right and hold my breath, and my heart was pounding like crazy. But it's pretty scary. Now with ADSB, if they have an ADSB out signal, you'll be able to see them, you know, and that's, you know, in your cockpit. You don't have to look out the window, although it's still, you know, recommended. But, you know, so you see it in both places, and that makes things so much safer. These are all the ADSB ground stations that we have. So you can see in some mountainous areas in the West where you can actually really benefit from ADSB, we aren't quite there yet. But some of the states there are actually paying for their own ADSB ground stations, because if you're in a non-radar area, the ADSB will give you much more information. What if you went down somewhere in the mountains? Wouldn't you like for someone to see where you were before you went down, and with the ADSB, they'll be able to see you. ADSB has been in Alaska for years. That's where we tested it, and they use that all the time. Now here's the rule compliance. So it's Class A, B, and C airspace, Class E airspace. Oops, let me go back. I think it's important for you all to see that. There we go. So you can see for Class E where you'll need to use it. It's pretty much everywhere where a transponder is required today. And the components. Okay. Now, if you get WAS first, you'll already have the antenna and you'll have the upgraded wiring to be able to do that, so the cost will be a lot less. How many of you have WAS? Got 2. I'm almost there. I fly back and forth from Annapolis to the western part of the state, where we have an airport on top of the mountain, and it is just now getting its WAS approach. So now I can see the benefit of WAS. I fly there every other weekend at least. And so now I'll be able to fly in there at the 200-foot minimum, which is just fantastic. What I usually have to do is fly there, can't see the runway, can't get any of the other signals that you need in order to land. So we try to do a missed approach, come back a second time, try it, can't do it. So we fly over to Cumberland or somewhere else, or Morgantown, West Virginia, and we wait an hour or two, and we call ATC. Sometimes they have the good weather or flight service. Sometimes it's not that accurate, and we try it again, and sometimes the third time we can finally get in because we knew the weather was going to be clearing. But with WAS, we'll be able to get in there the first time, because if it's under 200 feet, it's probably so bad that we wouldn't be flying in it anyway. So GPS-based navigation is what we talked about earlier. We had nothing at a lot of GA airports, and then we got GPS approaches, and then they switched to RNAV approaches, required navigation performance. And the RNAV approaches are the same as the GPS, and they give you a lot of precision. And you can see some of the routing now is GPS-based. Here you can see the difference in the precision. Now, if you were in a busy metroplex area, and you were flying to your local GA airport, and these were approaches and departures from the hub. In the picture on the left, I'd get a little worried about someone not being that precise and being too close to me, and the controllers worry about that, so they generally don't let you in, or they hold you, or you have to wait until you're able to get in safely. But with RNAV now, look at how precise those flight tracks are. We can decouple or deconflict traffic between airports so much better. Now, the WAS LPV procedures this is what it looks like for those of us who don't have it. Few of you do. Okay. Now, there are 2,772 WAS LPVs in the US, and why is that number so important? It's important because it's 3 times the number of ILSs. So here, I hear a lot of times, well, NextGen investment is not about GA, it's about the air carriers. The investment for WAS LPVs is all about GA, and now we have 3 times as many approaches. And what's beautiful about the WAS, once you have it at an airport, as long as it's cleared for obstruction, you can do it at multiple runway ends. Electronic charts, iPads. Yes, that's my flight bag with all the charts. Actually, the bag is full of them too. I took this picture right before I flew down to the Bahamas this winter. And I also took my iPad. And that's when I learned that you can't upload much when you're in the air. You have to do it while you're on the ground before you leave, or somewhere where you have Wi-Fi service. And I know air carriers have Wi-Fi service, but I don't see GA quite having Wi-Fi service just yet. But anything's possible with all the satellite signals. So, other tablet apps. Okay. Okay, on the electronic flight bags, here's the FAA guidance. What's most important is don't use them for flying instrument approaches. Use them the same way you use your charts. Don't use the position that keeps moving on the iPad for your position guidance. Use it for charting for where you're supposed to be. And it's always good to have additional information because it makes things safer. Okay. So the NextGen benefits are improved situational awareness, fuel savings if you can fly direct, airport access, definitely with WAS, and also the GPS or RNAV approaches, and the benefits of the electronic charts. It did not take very long for the FAA to certify the iPad for charts, and that is very encouraging because sometimes things take a very, very long time to get through our system. These are information sites for you if you want to learn more about NextGen. We'll have an additional link on there for NextGen performance. On those places where we have implemented NextGen technology or procedures, my office is recording the performance. We've been asked by Congress, we've been asked by General Accountability Office, Office of Management and Budget, which is the White House, to show what kind of performance improvements are we getting as a result of NextGen. So the first iteration of the NextGen performance, we call them snapshots because they're rear view mirror looks, so it's not projecting benefits. It is looking back to see what we achieved. And with that, if we see some areas where we didn't achieve anything, we need to ask ourselves why. Why are pilots not flying them? Why our controller is not granting them if they were requested, the approaches and departures. What's interesting, look at the picture on the left. You see that straight line down, coming down to the airport or to the runway. What's interesting there, we do something called optimized profile descents. They're also called continuous descent arrivals and tailored approaches, tailored arrivals. We have lots of names for this. But the goal is to use RNAV and to fly, and actually the old fan systems and the air carriers can do this. That's why we have some different names depending on the technology used. But the goal is to fly at idle almost from your high en route altitude down through terminal airspace to the runway. Now granted, we can't do that because of the busy traffic in a lot of places, but we can take out level off. So now when you're in your air carriers, you know, flying to and from Sun and Fun if you didn't fly your own planes, just be aware of the noise, how many times the plane coming down has to level off. Every time they level off, they burn so much more fuel and create more noise because they have to rev up that engine. So the goal would be to just have one continuous descent down. It's good for our environment, that sustainability part that I was talking about. And it is, quieter, fewer emissions, less fuel, cost beneficial. You know, you don't have to burn all that extra fuel each time you level out. So all good things. So that is what that depicts. And so these are our different sites for information. And outside here, there's one of those A-frame type advertisement things with the schedule of the forums. Well, on the other side of that is a NextGen implementation plan. My office publishes those. And we just published a new version. It's an annual production. We just published it the end of, well, actually middle of March, so just a couple weeks ago. We don't even have the paper versions ready yet. But we are using new technology, QRs, you know, where you can upload things if you have your iPhone and your iPad and you have the app to do that. There's a whole report on what NextGen is implementing and when and what we've already accomplished.